who can't join us tonight. Bienvenidos y bienvenidas. Bienvenidos y bienvenidas. Muy bien. Es el 1 de julio.
Sí.
Es el 1 de julio. Vale, entonces hoy vamos a practicar muchísimo con reflexivos. Vamos a tener un juego breve y vamos a tener un ejercicio de leer también usando reflexivos y otras cosas. Bien, entonces, y consejos, suggestions, because another topic that came up, which is an excellent topic, was, gee, I would love to watch some movies. What should I watch? You know, some movies that I can put on in Spanish. These are just suggestions. First of all, if you got any kids videos from when your kids were little, those are always helpful because they're usually pretty pretty easy speech. You do not, even though this is a fabulous movie, es una película fabulosa. Do not listen to this one. It's a true, from Matt's Room. It's a mathematical thriller, kind of sci-fi-ish, kind of mystery-ish, but the speech is very, very fast. So we're trying to distinguish between what's way too fast, in addition to, it talks about mathematics. I can't do that. It talks about mathematics. So, okay, maybe if you're a math person, Fermat's Room is then great. But not so much otherwise. If you want like super easy listening, where it's like part Spanish, part English, because this is really kind of a hybrid movie. Buena Vista, Social Club.
Yes.
It's fun if you can get that on Netflix. Although it's like an extended music video, honestly. And Ry Cooder, he talks about basically scouting out these Cuban artists. And this is before you could travel very easily between Cuba and Estados Unidos, before a lot of the sanctions on travel were lifted. But there's a lot of music in Spanish, which is fun. There are some little interviews they have with the folks. So a lot of it is in English, but the interviews with the artists are actually in Spanish. So, it's kind of fun for that if you want something kind of limited.
And does that also have subtitles as well?
Let me look. Vamos a ver. Spanish with English subtitles. So there you go.
Great. Good.
I don't know that it puts the lyrics up, but I'll bet on YouTube you can probably find the music with subtitles on YouTube, because this has been cruising around for a long time. And actually the stories behind these people's lives is quite interesting. Because some of us don't want to watch the movies we showed our kids. Do you want to watch Lion King? Do you want to watch Frozen? Maybe you do. Maybe you're like, seriously? Just don't want to go there. So, these are more adult type things. Really, gory and gross. Pan's Labyrinth, gory and gross. However, historically, set in a really interesting historical backdrop of early years of post-Spanish Civil War. I said gross because really the sci-fi aspect of it for a teenager or a kid is one of those scary things, but to me, the violence in it does get a little much from time to time. I'll be honest with you. However, psychologically, the story is very interesting. And language-wise, this movie is very easy to follow. my high school students who were up at the 3rd year level, and some of them even the 2nd year level, they would walk away from it saying, I could understand almost every single thing the people were saying in that movie. But it's a very unusual story. It's a story about a little girl in post Spanish Civil War, northern Spain. It is it's a fantasy movie. It has real psychological elements of how kids deal with war, how they cope psychologically with surviving war situations. So from that aspect, it's quite interesting. The other suggestion I would have, and this is totally in Spanish, this really, if you have never seen, this is an excellent movie, Motorcycle Diaries. Oh, es tan guapo, es tan guapo. Oh my God, yes. If you've ever watched on Amazon, Mozart in the Jungle, this is the guy, when he was very young. Motorcycle Diaries tells a story, most of it actually quite true, of Che Guevara and a road trip he did with a buddy of his when he was just in his finishing college years. And basically it's a story about his journey of coming from a very upper middle class, very comfortable background to seeing the poverty of Latin America. And basically what spurs him to, they don't get into any of his involvement in Cuba, in the Cuban Revolution, but it does set the stage for why he became a revolutionary. What happened in his youth to start turning him towards that way. Now I'm going to say, for those of you who have very strong political feelings, Che Guevara did some terrible things, line people up against the wall and shoot them that bad, and did that a lot. He was not a nice guy. You will watch this movie and think, what a nice young man. At that age, probably was. But it does show a great deal of somebody's grappling with the topic of the haves and the have-nots in Latin America, and kind of on a bigger scale, the idea of South America as a continent really united by a language, yet they are separate countries. And the fact that, he was coming to believe that really all these different countries shouldn't be separated as nations, but should come together culturally. So there's that part of it, which is interesting. It's got a big medical issue, because he did train to be a doctor. So it's got that too, which is kind of interesting. And then, como agua para chocolate. Wow, like water for chocolate. This again was filmed in Spanish. This would be, these two, Motorcycle Diaries and Like Water for Chocolate, both go fairly fast, but you can't always pull up subtitles on both of these. But this one is based on a book which was very popular, and it truly, truly adheres to the literary tradition of the book, which is magical realism. So unlike Motorcycle Diaries, which talks about actual people who actually did a road trip through a whole continent, or unlike straight, wow, we got fantasy going on big time in a historical backdrop, this is a story that adheres to magical realism, which is a literary movement that started, I think, in the 1920s. And it basically seeks to blend stories about real people. Well, let me take that back. It is a genre of fiction. So they're fictional stories, but the fictional stories tell the lives of people which seem very normal, but then events start to into the story where you become uncertain where reality leaves off and where the fantasy world comes into play. And the two start to interweave. So be aware. Sometimes if you're the type of person who thinks very literally, you may find elements of this confusing mentally. But you have to keep in mind they're blending fantasy. The reader of this type of genre starts off saying, oh, these are about the lives of real people. Wait a minute, this couldn't happen in real life. And yeah, so if you've ever heard of Garcia Marquez, who was a famous writer who won a lot of awards, he too was in that school of literature. And this is something in Spain that was, well, in all of Latin America, really. It was largely driven by Latin America. Big movement. But interesting story, quirky, weird, very odd elements. Parts of it where you totally would be able to follow, parts where you might need a little help, for sure, with subtitles. We have a short movie I will assign for you guys next week, not yet this week, but next week. There are some shorts that have come out of Spain recently, which have won some awards, which are very easy to watch, very short, and both cute and easy to follow, and good for listening comprehension. So, okay. There you go. Ahorita, a ver, vamos a empezar. Vamos a empezar con un juego de 20 preguntas. We got 20 questions coming up.
You know, I'm hearing some feedback. So I don't know if it's something with your setting, Marilyn, or I'm hearing feedback.
Yeah, I'm getting it too. I'm wondering if it's in somebody's house. If somebody's got bad noise.
Nobody guilty in my house of doing that yet.
Yeah, for us it made no difference when I muted us.
Yeah, and I don't have any.
I think we have too many lines unmuted, so everyone should go to mute and it'll probably resolve it.
Okay, can everybody mute themselves for a minute and just we'll see if that fixes it? Otherwise, it might be on my end and I can't imagine what it would be. People are hearing feedback. People are hearing feedback. Or electronic. Okay, does it sound funny to you guys now?
Like an echo?
No, I'm getting shit. Yes, is yes for Jan. I have no idea. It might be on my end. Trying to figure that out. Okay. Can anybody else hear? Because I'm getting some no's and some yeses. Are we quiet now? Okay, and I know nobody's playing stuff in the other room. So otherwise I would say it's on my end for sure, but okay. We'll hope. Okay.
Yeah.
Bien. Bueno, vamos a empezar. Vamos a empezar con 20 preguntas. 20 preguntas. Ustedes pueden preguntarme. Remember, you're going to be thinking about questions you can ask about this item. I will have an item, and it is a common item. I want you guys to ask questions to guess what it is. And you could ask yes/no questions, but I encourage you to ask questions that go beyond the yes/no. That means interrogativos, right? Like qué, cuándo, por qué, dónde, you know, anything. De qué color, any of those kind of things. Es una cosa. Es una cosa. Es lo único que voy a decirles. That's the only thing I'm going to tell you guys. ¿Tienen preguntas?
Repitan, por favor.
Bien. Sí. La cosa para el juego de 20 preguntas es una cosa, no es animal, es una cosa, no es una persona. Es una cosa común.
Común. Es una artículo de la casa.
Artículo de la casa. No es un aparato. No es un aparato de casa. Puede estar en casa, pero muchas veces no está dentro de una casa.
Oh, no dentro. ¿Cómo se dice aparato en inglés?
Aparato es device.
Oh. Okay.
Y no es necesario que esté dentro de una casa. Puede estar por cualquier lugar.
¿Es más grande que una caja de pan?
No. Es más pequeño. Es más pequeño que una caja de pan. Es más pequeño que una caja de pan.
Okay.
Bigger than a bread box, smaller than a bread box. Es más pequeño. Es buena pregunta.
¿Es un tipo de comida?
No es comida. No se come.
¿Dónde usa un aparato?
¿Dónde se usa? Where does one use it?
¿Dónde se usa?
Se usa por todas partes. Se usa fuera de casa, dentro de la casa, por todas partes.
¿De qué color típico?
No hay color típico. Se puede comprar en muchísimos colores. El color no importa.
I want to ask, does it make noise? But I'm not sure of the word.
Hace ruido.
Oh, hace ruido. Okay.
Hace ruido. Voy a escribirlo aquí. Hace ruido. Does it make noise? Muchas veces sí. Todo el tiempo, no. Siempre no. Pero muchas veces sí. Depende. Cuando sea necesario, entonces sí hace ruido.
¿Es una bombilla?
¿Es una bombilla?
Bombilla.
Bombilla, like light bulb?
Oh. That could be anywhere.
No.
¿Es un teléfono celular?
That's what I
No es celular, no es celular, no.
That was my thought too.
¿Por qué ruida a veces?
¿Por qué hace ruido?
Okay.
Small.
I want to say because it makes noise.
At times.
because it makes noise at times, a veces, es un Siri?
Es un Siri.
Alexa?
Siri,
Go, whatever.
No.
no es un device electrónico.
Quizás
Oh.
sea posible, pero estrictamente no siempre.
Nice of you, exclamation point.
¿Perdón?
I don't know.
¿Otra vez o no?
Some colors.
Su uso principal no es para usar Siri. Creo que a veces es posible, pero el mío no. El mío no tiene Siri. Y creo que hay muchos modelos que no tienen Siri.
¿Es una computadora? ¿Es una computadora?
No exactamente. Como muchas cosas, tiene partes electrónicas, pero no es exactamente, precisamente computadora.
¿Es un reloj?
Es un reloj, es un smartwatch. Es un smartwatch y se dice en español smartwatch o reloj inteligente. Reloj inteligente o smartwatch. Depende, ¿no? Ok, bien. Excelente. Ok. Vamos a empezar. Vamos a empezar ahorita con reflexivos. Reflexivos. Voy a compartirles la pantalla para repasar. We're going to take a look at our screen to review these first before we actually go into practice. Okay. Verbos reflexivos. And this summer, we are also going to look at those little words that often confuse people, the lo, the le, the all that stuff. But we're going to take them in separate components, not all together. A ver, entonces, verbos reflexivos. So remember, we basically need two parts because that's how you will be practicing it. And then today, after our reflexive practice, we're going to expand out to what about just that word se? Because sometimes you see se used with a verb and it isn't reflexive, but we're going to look at, a couple uses of se and this use, which is reflexive. So we need a pronoun, right? The infinitive itself always has a se tagged on to the end of it, like a little caboose on the end of the train, right? But we kind of, to conjugate it, to actually use it, we detach that se, we bring it up to the front. And it has to become in the form of me, te, se, nos, or se again, depending on who does the action. Because unlike other verbs that have just a verb, this verb, to retain that special meaning of being reflexive, needs to have both the pronoun, either me, te, nos, or se, and the verb. And the pronoun and verb are going to be in the same corresponding format. So that means the me will need to go tag along with a yo verb. The te will need to tag along with a tu verb. The se may tag along with él or ella or usted, one of those, right? The nos has to tag along with the nosotros verb, us in Spain with vosotros, but we won't practice that one. And se, again, repeated, can tag along also with ellos or ellas or ustedes and the verb that corresponds, okay? But they're going to match up. They're going to be in kind of symbiotic format, right? They will agree with each other. Okay, common reflexive verbs. Usually, just a reminder, usually it has the meaning of an action that someone does to themselves, okay? So when you take that se off, it tweaks and changes the meaning. Levantarse is to get oneself up out of a chair, out of bed, out of any kind of reclining position. But levantar by itself would just mean this, lift up, right? But levantarse means to lift oneself up. Despertarse, to wake up, meaning you just on your own wake up. But of course, maybe a baby wakes you up. Then it's just despertar. Maybe the neighbor's dogs wake you up. It's just despertar without the se in there. Sentarse, to sit down, to sit oneself down. Sentar without the se is somebody seating somebody at their table, or somebody seating an usher seating you in a theater. That's just sentar. Ducharse is always kind of ducharse, because usually we shower ourselves, we don't shower somebody else, okay? Bañarse, sometimes we do bathe somebody else. If you've got a baby, you don't just toss them in the tub on their own, they're too little. But bañarse is to take a bath, right, on your own. Peinarse, to comb your own hair. But if grandma combs a granddaughter's hair, then it's just peinar, plain, okay? Cepillarse, same kind of story, brush, and you might be brushing hair or teeth, but cepillarse, right? Which could be hair, could be teeth. Secarse is to dry oneself off, like when you get out of the tub or the shower. But secar by itself would be like if you are drying dishes by hand, okay? Con una toalla. Okay, that is secar. Seco los platos con una toalla. Bien. Lavarse, wash oneself. Usually hands and face, right? Lavarse. Lavarse is also used with dientes, para que sepan, so you know, especially in Mexico, they like lavarse instead of cepillarse for dientes. But lavarse, wash oneself. Lavar by itself means to wash a thing. Wash your car, lavo el coche una vez a la semana, lavamos el perro porque estaba jugando. Okay, so, you could wash your pet, you could wash dishes again, glasses, wash the car. Acostarse, to go to bed oneself. Like despertarse is to wake up, acostarse is to go to bed. Maquillarse, to put on makeup, unless we're in the movie show business, then, unless you're in that and you're in with a makeup artist, it's always maquillarse. Lastimarse is to hurt yourself, to have an accident in such a way that you damage, you break your skin, break a bone, God forbid, hurt yourself, skin your knee, whatever it may be, lo que sea. Lastimarse, to hurt yourself, meaning somebody else didn't hurt you, you had an accident yourself. Llamarse, to call oneself, me llamo. Claro, muy fácil. Y ponerse, to put something on oneself, be it jewelry or clothing, ponerse. And there are many, many, many more, but these are really super common reflexives. So these are a little more obvious as to something you do to yourself, okay? And the one thing you should keep in mind, however, is that some verbs just are reflexive, and they don't adhere as neatly to that criteria of an action that somebody does to themselves. Some verbs just are reflexive. So keep that in mind, because it will happen. And we're going to take a look at some examples of that. Por ejemplo, and some of these you could technically say, oh, I see where that's reflexive, but in English, we would not use it in that way. that denotes doing it to yourself. Quejarse de, to complain about. And we never say you complain to yourself. But quejarse de, to complain about, is always just reflexive. It is. Divertirse, you could say, yeah, I divert myself, I entertain myself, but that's not generally the manner in which we express that idea. We say to have a good time. And you cannot translate have good time in Spanish. It can be many different expressions. This is one of them, divertirse. Comerse does not mean to eat yourself. Comerse gives that idea of gobble up, that you eat something super fast. Kind of suck it in. You eat it so fast. Okay, so lots of times at the table, grandmas may say to grandkids in particular, things like, cómanse, eat up. When you think about it in English, eat up, what about up? Has nothing to do with up in English, does it? But you know what we mean by eat up. That's what this is, comerse. Preguntarse, to ask oneself, but we use that to translate the idea of to wonder. Me pregunto por qué, me pregunto por qué. Me pregunto por qué, me pregunto por qué el cielo es de color, es azul. ¿Por qué es el cielo azul? Me pregunto dónde está el niño. I wonder where the kid is. Okay, so preguntarse, to wonder. Really super important one that's used a lot. Darse cuenta de. To give oneself an account of. Yes, it's reflexive, but we don't ever say it that way. Darse cuenta de se usa con frecuencia. You use this phrase a lot, this verb, and it's a whole phrase. Darse cuenta de, to realize, meaning the big idea just hits you. Okay, so darse cuenta de, you know, it generally happens kind of fast to you. An idea just comes to you and it sneaks up on you, right? Darse cuenta de. Graduarse. We don't ever say you graduate yourself, but it's reflexive. Jubilarse. Retire. Do you retire yourself? Kind of, but we never say it that way. So what I'm saying is a lot of these verbs that are reflexive don't follow that nice format of you do it to yourself. Sometimes you need to just accept that they are. And we've got some other things in here like equivocarse, to be mistaken, to be wrong. Callarse, to be quiet, literally to quiet yourself. There's another really common one. Olvidarse, to forget about something. Irse, which is almost exactly like ir, but it gives it the idea of go away. Away. Irse. Morirse is often used reflexively. It is not at all different from morir, but it is very frequently used as morirse. It does not mean somebody commits suicide, although suicide is a reflexive verb. But anyway, morirse is just often used as a reflexive. Oh, quejarse we had before. So, okay. Bueno, por ejemplo. El con lastimarse. ¿Cómo se dice? El con lastimarse. He hurts himself. Vamos a practicar un poquito antes de practicar uno con el otro.
Where's our, okay.
How do we change lastimarse into a form that says he hurts himself?
Oh. El se lástima.
Lástima.
El niño, Roberto, lo que sea, whatever his name is, sí, el niño se lastima. If you want to say he did it in the past, Se lastimó. Se lastimó would make it preterite, meaning he did that to himself, and now it's over with. Okay? Because these reflexives can be conjugated in any tense whatsoever. ¿Cómo se dice? Forget. Yo con olvidarse. Yo con olvidarse.
Me olvidó.
Olvidó.
Se ayudó would make it past. Se ayudó, he forgot. But it wouldn't do it for yo. So if you want to change it for yo.
Me olvidó.
Me olvido, me olvido. Me olvido. Me olvidé, I forgot. And you know, some of these lend themselves a little bit better to the past. We usually don't use forget in the present so much as we do maybe in the future or in the past, right? Me olvidé, pretérito. Okay. Oh, we are wrong. Nosotros. Con equivocarse. Nosotros con equivocarse.
Nos equivocamos.
Nos equivocamos. Nos equivocamos. We're wrong. Nos equivocamos. Bien. Morirse. And this one, you'll usually hear in preterite. I'll help you out with that one. Se murió. Se murió. Se murió.
Died.
He died, she died. Se murió. We don't hear it as often in the present, except to say things like, me muero de hambre. I'm dying of hunger. And people will say, ay, me muero de hambre.
Why isn't it muerto?
Muerto is the past participle.
Okay.
Se ha muerto, se ha muerto. He has died, she has died. Se ha muerto. If I use muerto, I need to use está muerto, is dead, or I need to use ha muerto, has died. Muerto, I can't use by itself. It has to be paired up with a verb of some kind. Has, hemos, han muerto. Or I can use it as an adjective, está muerto. Bien. Okay. Los clientes. ¿Cómo se dice? The customers are complaining. Los clientes
Se quejan.
se quejan. Se quejan. Los clientes se quejan ahora, now, presente, se quejan o se quejaron in the past, en el pasado. Se quejaron, they complained. Se quejaron, pretérito, se quejan, they're complaining right now. Bien, ok. A ver, otros ejemplos. La abogada, la abogada, la abogada. La abogada, she's graduating.
Say graduate. Graduar. Graduar.
Se
gradua.
gradúa. Se gradúa. For happening right now. El pasado se graduó. Se graduó. Okay. Callarse. Los niños. The kids are being quiet. Los niños.
Los niños
se callan. Se callan. They're being quiet. En el pasado, se callaron. They were quiet. They shut up. Callarse es más como shut up en inglés. ¿Ok? Callarse. Se callan en presente, se callaron en el pasado. Ok. I wonder. ¿Yo?
Me pregunto.
Me pregunto. Vamos a ver la chica hermosa aquí. She turns red. That means she's blushing. When I pair that up with roja, It doesn't mean clothing anymore. It means her face turns red. Ella?
Se pone.
Se pone
Roja.
roja. Se pone roja. Se pone roja. Okay. Los jóvenes. They fall in love. Los jóvenes.
Se enamoran.
Se enamoran. Se enamoran. Se enamoran. Muy bien. Ok. Unos ejemplos más. Parecerse means to look alike. To look like each other. Y voy a escribir. Se parecen. Sí, las gemelas. Las gemelas. Las gemelas means the twins. Con parecerse, with parecerse just becomes se parecen. Se parecen. Se parecen. They look like each other. And you'll see that in a little video in a bit. To go crazy.
Me vuelvo loco.
Me vuelvo loco. Me vuelvo loco, me vuelvo loca. Aquí tengo loca porque es una mujer. Me vuelvo loca. Para un hombre me vuelvo loco. Es como decir, it drives me crazy. It's a little like that. Okay. Llevarse bien. To get along. To get along. That's what the bien is about.
Get along well.
It's about the get along part.
Se llevan.
We need a métenos or se.
Se llevan.
Se llevan. Se llevan bien. Se llevan bien. Se llevan bien. So the hard thing when you look at this visually is probably you're figuring out, what do I do to conjugate that? And you've got to remember when you're conjugating it, the se is no longer there, right? So you're just conjugating llevar. Se llevan. Se llevan bien. Se llevan bien. There are a couple things we could use for this situation. Esta situación de dos chicos. ¿Sí? Fight es pelearse. Pelearse. Como se dice, they are fighting. Duking it out.
Se pelean.
Se pelean. Se pelean. Muy bien. If we want to say they are behaving badly. Es otro verbo. Behave badly. Comportarse mal.
Se comportan.
Se comportan mal. Exacto. Enfermar is to sicken, but to get sick is enfermarse. El hombre se enferma. Se enferma. He's getting sick. Se enferma. Se enferma. If I want to make it past, se enfermó. Se enfermó. En el pasado, se enfermó, pretérito. Pero se enferma, he's getting sick right now. ¿Está bien? Unos ejemplos más. Ok. Ponerse con la chaqueta. La mujer.
La mujer.
Se
pone la chaqueta.
Se pone la chaqueta. Se pone la chaqueta. Los chicos, they take off.
Se van.
Se van. Se van. Now, this verb you hear a lot in pretérito. You hear this a lot. Se fueron. They got out of there. They left. They took off. Se fueron. El pájaro se fue. El pájaro se fue. The bird took off. Se fue. Se fue. Se fueron para los chicos. Y levantarse. El chico
Se levanta.
Se
se levanta.
Ta.
Y lo opuesto. And the opposite. El chico
Se sentan.
Se sien.
se sienta. Es más difícil. This is one that's got a stem change too. Sienta. S-I-E. S-E-E. Sienta. Se sienta. Se sienta. He sits down, right? Se sentó en el pasado. Se levanta en presente. Se levantó en pretérito. ¿Bien?
That's the one I missed.
Okay. Pretty soon I'm going to send you off to go into chat rooms to work with those questions. So if you don't have those questions that print out right next to you, we're going to give you a moment to find where you put that paper so you can pull that out. Take a look. Does anybody need me to put the link for it in the chat box or no?
Una pregunta, profesora.
Okay, dime. Sí, Keith.
Jubilarse
Sí.
versus acostarse. So can you use them interchangeably? Acostarse, I'm going to bed. Some people say I'm going to retire for the evening.
Oh, no.
Or no.
No, they are not interchangeable at all. Acostarse is to go to bed. You're preparing to fall asleep. Jubilarse is retire, as in retire from your profession.
Ah, okay.
If you're
Jubilarse,
talking
sí.
about, there is a verb, retirar. Retirar is retire in the sense of withdrawing. Like withdrawing from a course.
Okay.
That kind of withdraw.
Right.
But jubilarse is to retire as in I no longer work. Ya no trabajo, por ejemplo, ya no trabajo como maestra en el colegio. I no longer work as a high school teacher. ¿Sí? Me jubilé. I retired from that. Me jubilé. ¿Entiendes?
Sí.
Sí, so mi jubileo en enero 5 junio.
Sí. En el pasado, if you want to make that past, me jubilé en enero. Me jubilé en enero. I retired in January. If you wanted to say that. You could, and often that one is, you know, it's a frequent thing to be used in pretérito and past, right? Because people talk about that as a past event. Me jubilé en enero, me jubilé en 2017. You might want to give the year, lo que sea. Ok. Buena pregunta aquí. Gracias. ¿Hay más preguntas antes de practicar o no? Remember, you're going to need both a pronoun, me, te, nos, or se, and se does double duty. It works for él, ella, usted, and for ellos, ellas, ustedes. So in that way, you know, you've got kind of a nice little cheat. So the paper you're looking for is this one, right? This one that has a whole bunch of different questions with reflexivos. So I want you to take some turns. You can go in order. You can pick things out, you know, out of order if you want, depending on what interests you or what doesn't. I'm thinking at least 7 minutos. You'll need at least 7 minutes, ¿verdad? ¿O 10? ¿10?
Sí, 10.
10 minutos? Okay. Do you guys want me to come in? I believe you can signal me when you go into the chat room to ask me for help.
How would we do that?
I do not see the button. I do not see the button because I'm the host. But I know people have used, there is a little button, and it might be under like the 3-dot ellipse thing.
Under more?
It might be under more.
Meeting settings, minimize meeting in chat.
Yeah, not yet, but it might appear when you go into the chat room. I think it will not appear until you're in the chat room. So yeah, kind of cruise around. I'm just going to divide you into 3 groups.
There's a bell. I don't know what that is.
Oh, could be the bell.
Maybe that just mute. Oh, this notification.
Oh, that's notifications. That won't be it. It's probably a button that will not appear until you get into into the breakout room, I believe. But I know people have used it to tell me, oh, I've got a problem. But my thought is to maybe let you be on your own, ask questions, then come back and tell me what, if you had difficulties with it. ¿Está bien? Are we good?
Sí.
Okay, vale. Bien. We will have it send you off. A ver, un momentito. Perfecto, perfecto, perfecto. Okay, it's going to send you off. Remember, you are going to need to hit the join button. Okay, it won't let you into the room unless you hit the join button, and it will give you a 60-second countdown when I bring you back. So we're gonna call it 10 minutes, 10 minutos. Okay.
So that must.
Ok. ¿Hay preguntas?
Sí, Tom.
Ok.
Yeah.
Díganme.
So the first question we had was, why do you get up early in the morning? And I was trying to formulate a response that says, to see the sunrise, and we don't know how to say sunrise.
Ah, para ver,
Okay.
in order to see,
Mm-hmm.
el amanecer. El es una palabra larga, that's a long word. Amanecer. Amanecer. El amanecer is the sunrise.
Okay, amanecer.
Me levanto, pues, ok, sí, me levanto temprano para ver, in order to see, el amanecer.
Okay.
I don't think I can put the chat box in there, but I will put it in the chat box when we get back. El amanecer. Bien?
Okay.
Bien.
Yes.
¿Tienen más
Gracias.
preguntas? Do you have any other questions?
Not yet.
No, okay.
Ya no.
Okay. Me voy. Muy bien. Muy bien. Ahora vamos a repasar un poquito. ¿Tienen preguntas de este ejercicio? Sí. Juanita,
Sí.
dime.
Sí, sí. Número 15. En un restaurante te sientes al aire libre en un patio o adentro.
Bien.
What messed me up was sientas. When I looked it up, it said to feel, because sentir is to feel, but then sentarse is to sit. So I didn't know if you were saying, do I want to feel the air? Or
No. Here's what I'm saying. And the key here is understanding this word string, al aire libre. Al aire libre means outdoors. Al aire libre means outdoors, outside. Literally in the open air. It's in the free air. So, quite often they ask you if you want to be seated outdoors or indoors, especially around here, because we have seating in many restaurants that's either outside or inside. So, te sientas al aire libre is do you sit down outside? Hay una diferencia entre sentarse to sit down. I've got it in the chat box. Sentarse, to sit down. There is another verb, and it is also a stem changer in the same way. But instead of sentarse, it's sentirse. Sentirse is to feel a certain way, an emotion. And as you know, your verbs always end in o, right? So, me siento can mean I'm sitting down, but a yo form for sentirse is still me siento, I feel. Me siento aliviada, I feel relieved. Me siento frustrada. Me siento frustrada. Me siento frustrada con mi conexión de internet. Feel frustrated with my internet connection. Sí. Lo que sea, ¿sí? So, te sientas comes from sentarse, to sit down. The true form for sentirse would be te sientes, an es at the end. Te sientes. Okay. ¿Cómo te sientes? ¿Cómo te sientes? How do you feel? Okay. Probably you don't want to ask ¿cómo te sientas? How do you sit down? Yeah. ¿Dónde te sientas? Sí, ¿dónde te sientas? ¿Dónde te sientas? Where do you sit down? Está bien.
Okay, so I must have looked up the wrong word and then went off on a tangent.
It's very, well, you get that conjugation, you get the vowel off, and it can send you off in a different direction. Okay, buena pregunta. We had a question about the word sunrise. El amanecer, the sunrise. That came up in the middle of session. ¿Hay más preguntas o no?
Sí. ¿Cómo se dice soft soap?
Soft soap? ¿En la marca, the brand?
Not necessarily, but just the idea of not a bar, but the soap that's liquid and comes in a plunger.
Okay. Jabón is the only word really for soap. Jabón. El jabón. El jabón es soap. Me imagino que es algo como el jabón líquido. I have to check that out, but it's probably
I looked it up.
Something like that. Eso es, sí. Brands, and we do that for tissue, for Kleenex. We use a lot of things, Jell-O. Most people don't say gelatin, they'll use the brand name, right? So soft soap being a brand name, it may sell under the same brand name, especially in Mexico, but in other countries, very possibly not. But
well, I tried to look up soft, and there are different words for soft, and I didn't know which one applied to soap.
But jabón suave wouldn't get across that idea that we have of soft soap.
No. Okay.
You could use suave, soft, but that would cause probably confusion because if they don't have that as a brand name, which in many countries they might very well not, it probably would, because jabón is, that's hard, right? But
blando,
líquido is liquid. That would get across the idea. I'm gonna see if there's a special thing to put in for liquid soap that might work. But I bet I'm going to have to check. Oh, jabón líquido. It's just what I thought it was. Yep, hand washing soap in liquid form. Jabón líquido. How about that? Jabón líquido.
Liquid soap.
Yeah, because that's what it is.
Very good.
Eso es. That's it. If you're talking a gel, like you're in the shower and like shower gel, you could use jabón líquido, but you could also use gel de ducha, gel, G-E-L, gel de ducha. That's used also. But jabón líquido, if you're at the sink, kitchen sink, bathroom sink, jabón líquido. Bien, buena pregunta. ¿Hay más preguntas?
Sí, una más.
Una a la vez. Let me get Pat first and then I'll get Keith, okay?
I didn't hear what you said for sunrise. What did you say?
Oh, el amanecer.
Okay.
El amanecer is the sunrise. El amanecer.
Okay.
I'm putting in the chat box. I hope you can see it. El amanecer.
Yes. Okay.
El amanecer means the sunrise.
Okay. Thank you.
Y Keith.
¿Cómo se dice? Mi amigo trabaja executive.
Oh.
Ejecutivo.
Trabaja de ejecutivo. He works. Do you mean like he works as an executive?
Yes. Sí.
Es el jefe. Sí. Es el director. El director, el jefe. You can't say ejecutivo. I'll write these in the chat box. There are different words that would indicate an executive. El ejecutivo. And you can see it looks like executive, right? But with a J, a J instead of the X. Ejecutivo would be executive. El jefe, boss, right? El patrón, also boss, right? El director, el gerente. El gerente is like a manager. So it kind of depends on what level. If you're talking like a CEO type of guy, ejecutivo works. Because that means chief executive officer, right?
Sí. Gracias.
De nada.
So
Director ejecutivo, they might combine those two, director ejecutivo. Sí. Sí. Federico.
So I've got a question. Next to the last one, I answered, los atletas profesionales se lastiman sus piernas. But here's where I don't think there was any reason for me to be confused, but I kept being confused whether or not the athletes were hurting themselves or a part of the body.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, it's really both, but it doesn't matter that much. Se lastiman means they got injured. They injured themselves.
And
so, in other words, like maybe somebody else didn't It's not the,
Football injury.
yeah, it's not somebody else running into them necessarily, but somebody might twist their knee, sprain their ankle,
Okay.
right? Pull a tendon, and it just happens, right? Se lastiman. Se lastiman is they hurt themselves, they get injured.
So my delving down into direct versus indirect was really, the whole thing was moot. The point
It's
is
moot.
it was theirs.
It's
and
moot.
so
Because you got injured,
I see.
right?
Do you use the sus or do you use the las?
Las piernas.
Okay, las piernas.
Los atletas profesionales se lastiman las piernas, se lastiman las rodillas.
Okay.
So I screwed up there.
Se
Dedo,
lastiman,
dedo
they
de
injure.
césped.
Perdón.
Dedo de césped.
Dedo de
Césped. Césped.
césped?
Césped.
Césped is lawn.
Yeah. And
Like-
dedo is toe, right?
Toe.
Los atletas profesionales se lastiman dedo de césped. If you know football, you've heard this thing called turf toe?
Sí.
Oh,
Turf?
Oh.
You don't know grass.
Entendí muy mal. Wow. Okay, I didn't get that. Bien. Uy, ay. Turf. No sé cómo se dice. Tengo que buscar el término. Me imagino en el fútbol, soccer es muy semejante, pretty similar, right? Wouldn't soccer players have that same thing?
Sí.
Voy a buscarlo. I'm going to look for it. Porque no sé si hay un término para decir turf, you know? Es como para los ciclistas, road rash, ¿sí? Road rash is a thing, but yeah, sí, eso es. Bueno, Tomás. Oh, Tomás, you got to unmute yourself.
So my question is, you gave us all the male genders, and with the Me Too movement, I don't know that we shouldn't be learning things other than El Jefe, El Director.
Is your wife in the background?
Good for her.
She certainly thinks she's El Jefe.
Maybe La Jefa?
Is it la jefe then if it was female?
Yeah. So is it La Jefa or is it?
Same word or not?
I'm sorry, La.
I think.
La Jefa?
La Jefa?
You put an A on the end or
Do you
not?
put an
Oh,
A?
for a woman boss?
Yes.
Oh, sí, la jefa. Sí, la jefa.
La jefa.
La directora, la jefe, la ejecutiva, la patrona. La directora es muy común. La directora is very, very common. La gerente. Gerente does not change. It just changes the L or the La. Gerente is the same no matter if it's a woman or a man because it ends in an E. And that E ending on the gerente, that last letter E, always stays the same. Well, I'm not going to say always. That's not always true, but often stays the same. Gerente. But la jefa, con frecuencia se dice la jefa.
La jefa. Sí.
La jefa, the boss.
La jefa.
So,
La jefa.
una pregunta.
Sí, Juanita, dime.
In terms of order of the sentence, can you say, se lastiman los atléticas profesionales?
No.
Or, no.
No. So, when you're answering that, typically you'll probably leave out los atletas profesionales entirely. Because I know from the question you're asking about los atletas profesionales. You'll probably just answer it, se lastiman las rodillas. They injure their knees. Se lastiman las piernas. They injure their legs. Se lastiman los codos. Se lastiman los hombros.
So would the los atléticos profesionales have to be first in the sentence? If
It would
you
have to
want
be
use
first.
it?
If you specifically state it, it would have to come first. But when you're answering the question, it is understood you're answering about them. So people would typically probably not even say that part. They would just lead off with se lastiman la espalda, the back, se lastiman los hombros, se lastiman los brazos, así. Se lastiman los pies, así.
So then what does the statement que lastima mean?
Que
What-
lástima
how does that fit in
is
with
not
it?
a verb at all. Que lástima, voy a escribir. I'm going to write it in the chat box so you can see how that looks. And actually, if I figure out how to get my, because I've got my,
Because can't you use lastimar without being a reflexive to hurt yourself or they hurt themselves?
lastimarse is specifically reflexive. Injure yourself, hurt yourself, okay? Lástima is not a verb at all. Lástima just means a pity. Que lástima means what a pity. Or what a shame.
Oh. So it's like a slang, and that's just what it means, and don't try to figure it out.
Not even a slang.
Learn it.
Not even really a slang, but that's a good way to ask it, but it's not slang. It's standard Spanish. Que lástima. Oh, such a shame. What a shame. What a pity.
It's just a saying.
It's just a saying. People might say, es una lástima. It's a shame. Es una lástima.
But it has nothing to do with hurting yourself.
No.
It's just how it's used. And
No.
what did you say? SSO? You
Yes.
said SOCKS.
Eso sí que es. It's
the
just
way
that
it is.
way. Yeah, you would think lástima should be associated with damage or something, but well, and it is, as in wow, that's a mess.
Oh,
It's a shame. What a pity.
okay.
Okay, so I've got a question here. So the mistake I made when I said sus piernas and it was las piernas, I think I made a similar mistake when I said, because the sus is covered by the se, so I didn't need a sus, it was las piernas. On the 11th item down, se llaman mis hijos Keenan y Malia. I don't want the word mis. I probably want the word los, right?
No, you do want mis there. Okay,
I
so
do.
here's the difference.
Okay.
Here's the difference. And this is, Federico, this is a really common question. When we talk about parts of the body, any body part, most of the time, not 100%, darn, but most of the time, when you say things like my head, my finger, my hand, you don't use the my word often. So you just use the article. And that's not what we do in English, but it's just what they do. So, entonces, me duele la cabeza, my head hurts. Me duele la cabeza, and this is not reflexive, by the way. My head causes pain to me. Me duele la cabeza. Let's use the reflexive since we're in that, just to keep it consistent. Me lastimé la mano. Me lastimé la mano. Me lastimé la mano. I hurt my hand. Tuve un accidente. I had an accident. Tuve un accidente y me lastimé la mano. Okay. Me lastimé las rodillas. I hurt my knees. Me lastimé el codo. When we talk about parts of the body, my, your, his, her becomes el, la, los, las. Usually does. Sometimes you hear me, mis, tú, tus used with body parts, but that's when we need to distinguish a body part as being belonging to him and not to me, to distinguish whose hand it is, right? If I say me lastimé, I hurt, we already know I hurt myself. So it's just la mano, la cabeza, el hombro, whatever that body part is. Body parts, most of the time, just get el, la, los, las, not my, your, his, her. But in the case of hijos, those are not body parts. Hijos are kids, children, offspring. So hijos do take a possessive pronoun frequently. In this case, tus hijos, mis hijos, sus hijos, because they're not a body part. We want to tell who the children belong to. Are they your kids or mine or his or ours or whomever? Most objects or with relationships like hijos, we do use mi, tú, tus, su, sus, nuestro, nuestra, nuestros, nuestras. Okay? With objects, with relationships, we do use possessives, my, your, his, her. With body parts, infrequently. Let's call it 90%. That would be fair. It's just an oddity of something they do. Bien? Ok. Ok. Vale, ¿hay más preguntas o no? Ustedes tienen buenas preguntas. You guys do have some really good questions. So I always want you to encourage you to follow up with that when we have an exercise like this. Oh, sí, Karen.
Una pregunta más.
Sí, sí.
The first question, tienes mascotas que te despiertan. And you say it's not reflexive because your pets wake you. So why is it te despiertan and not tú despiertan?
Te despierta, it's not te despiertas, do you wake up? It's te despiertan. Because they're making noise, they're doing the waking to you. And the to you is te. Entonces, ¿tienes mascotas? Do you have pets? ¿Qué te despiertan? Who that wake you up? Do you have pets that wake you up?
No.
Tengo mascotas que me despiertan. Tengo 5 mascotas que me despiertan. I have 5 pets who wake me up. They do the waking.
But I just was curious as to why it was te and not tu, since we're talking about you.
Because who are they waking up? They're waking you up.
And
that's a direct, you are receiving the action of being awakened. Hey, wake up.
It's not a subject then.
You are not the subject doing the despertar. You are on the receiving end of the despertar. You're on the receiving end. And because you're receiving the action, that pronoun has to be a te and not a tu.
So te is a direct object then?
Te can be a direct object.
But I mean in this sentence.
In that sentence, yes.
Yeah.
In that sentence, it's direct object. Because a direct object answers a question, who's being awakened?
Right, okay.
Who's the victim of being woken, who's getting woken up? Who's asleep and they're going to be very unhappy? You're receiving that action of being awakened. You don't wake up on your own. Kitty sticks their paws in, right? Or, Fido does the wow, 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 wow. He wants to go out for a walk and barks. So whatever it is, you know, right? The cold nose in the face, whatever they do to wake you. But they're doing the waking. They're doing it to you. And the to you is the te part. So when you answer about it, it becomes a me. Los perros me despiertan. The dogs wake me up. Los gatos me despiertan. They wake me up. ¿Bien?
Bien.
Yeah.
Excelente. Muy bien. Okay. Lo que vamos. Uy, ay, 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 ay. We're going to go in. No, that's okay. It's always okay when you ask questions. We're going to, we're a little behind, but that's okay. Son las 7:30. Okay. A ver. You are going to get a little video to watch for homework. We're going to see, actually, I can preview this. I'm going to preview this with one little screen, and then I'll show you what you're going to be doing for homework. A few different things. A ver. You're going to look at the we're going to look at this together. And again, I'll send this link again. It's the same one you got last. Ojo. Se has many meanings. So what we're going to go off into next week are two very common different uses for se. Well, really one that's different. One is just an offshoot of reflexive. So let's look at that first. Ojo means eye, but it really means watch out. Ojo, watch out. El uso de se tiene muchos sentidos. Se has many different, se can mean, no joke, like 5 or 6 different things, depending on the context. So here's the easy part. The number one part is the easy part. Sometimes se is reciprocal, meaning I don't do it to myself, but it means to each other. We do it to each other. They do it to each other. Sometimes it is reciprocal, and you'll get the idea. The idea is something like this. Nos vemos mañana. We'll see each other tomorrow. Nos vemos. We'll see each other. Nos vemos. Nos saludamos. We greet each other. El hombre y su esposa se abrazan. Se abrazan. El hombre y la esposa y su esposa se abrazan. The man and his wife embrace each other. They hug each other. So some verbs, when they're used with a se, are really reflexive. This verb we had here about the twins, that's really, truly a reflexive. They look like each other. So sometimes se can be a reciprocal. Sometimes, this is the part we'll look at next week, and we will actually practice next week. Sometimes se is not reflexive at all. And here is a not at all reflexive use of se that people use daily in conversation. When they want to use something that's kind of like a passive voice, meaning you do something, not you personally, that one person, but you in the very general sense, as in any old person. That question, ¿cómo se dice? How do you say? Or how does one say? That, bingo, bingo, ding, 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 is this number 2 thing you see on the screen. ¿Cómo se dice? How does one say? How do you say? How do you say? ¿Cómo se dice? Smartwatch. ¿Cómo se dice smartwatch? So this se is not truly a reflexive, but it is kind of what we would call in English a passive voice. And here are the examples, and you'll see a video on it this week. Se habla español. Spanish is spoken, or you speak Spanish in this place, okay? Se abre a las 8. It opens, meaning some kind of a shop or store or an office. Se abre a las 8. It opens at 8 o'clock. Se usa la copa para beber. You use the goblet glass. Copa is a goblet glass, like a wine glass. Se usa la copa para beber. You use the glass to drink. You, meaning any old you, not you, one specific person. Ah, se puede. You can. Se puede cantar. Ah, you can sing. Se puede, sí se puede. Yes, you can. Sí se puede. Se venden flores. Flowers are sold. That one's not reflexive, excuse me. That one is plural, se venden, because flores is more than one. Flowers are sold, meaning they're for sale. Se dice ayuda. You say help. So this number 2 use means one does something, or you, in an impersonal sense, do something, or something is done. And you'll see a little video on that. And we will practice many uses of that next week. This is really, really super everyday kind of structure. Okay? So you'll have the video to watch. You will have also a little song with lyrics to listen to. And you're going to see some true reflexives in that. It's a fun song by Juanes. Not super long. And you'll have an article to read that is going to talk about shopping with, well, you'll see. It's a shopping article. I won't spoil it. Okay, but it's going to have a number of se phrases. So some of them are going to be those passive voice kind of uses, and some might be true reflexives, but you'll see how those kind of structures are often woven together in articles that you read in the paper all the time. It's not a super long article. Song, article, video on se. Bien?
Yeah.
And we'll do some passive se with examples next week for sure. ¿Está bien?
¿Está bien?
Está bien. Okay. Van a leer, entonces ustedes van a leer. You guys are going to read. I'll probably reference some pages in the book where they talk about this concept so that you can see in the book, other examples they might have that would be helpful. Vale, magnífico. Si eso es todo, if that's it. Muy bien. I will leave it open just for people to chat their way out a little bit if they want to chit-chat just a bit more. But I know some of you might have to take off to do other things or eat. Tienen que comer, no se sabe, you don't know. Okay. ¿Bien?
Bien.
Bien.
Adiós, gracias.
Gracias,
Bye.
profesora.
Gracias, gracias.
De nada. Es un placer. Fue un placer. Wish me luck with the freezer tomorrow.
Buena suerte.
Buena suerte, yeah, claro. Necesito buena suerte. Y cuídense. Take care of yourselves. Cuídense.